Good evening. Let's bring this meeting to order on what it is today, December 3rd, 2024. Can we have the roll?
Councilmember Evans?
Present.
Councilmember Edwards?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Randolph?
Here.
Mayor Millman?
Here.
Councilmember Best-Campbell?
Present.
Councilmember Arndt?
Here.
Councilmember Taylor?
Here.
Can we stand for the flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I move to accept the agenda in order and content.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. No special presentations, public comments. I have two virtual public comments. We'll start with those while the city clerk gets the sign up. Carter Nelson.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Let me know when we're good to go.
So you state your name for the record and whether you live in the city limits, and you'll have 3 minutes.
All right. Good evening. I'm Carter Nelson. I do not live in Woodinville, but I am here tonight speaking on behalf of the Washington Multifamily Housing Association. We represent over 347,000 rental units in the state, 1,541 of which are in the city of Woodinville. We appreciate the communication from city staff and the recent amendment to delay the effective date of Ordinance 755 by 120 days. This delay provides necessary time for operators to comply if this ordinance is passed and valuable time for further discussion, which we hope will lead to a more balanced approach. We have concerns about several provisions of the proposed ordinance, which we outlined in more detail in our previous letter submitted to council, as well as some additional concerns raised by our members that I want to share tonight. The proposed ordinance includes a long notice period for rent increases. While intended to give residents more time to prepare, this extended notice period will lead to higher average rent increases. Housing providers faced with the uncertainty of market conditions, occupancy rates, and other factors at the time of a lease renewal may find themselves needing to raise rents more than they would like to in order to protect against these risks. While well-intentioned, we feel that this provision will contribute negatively to the overall affordability challenges in the city. We're also concerned that this ordinance may conflict with state law. The Valley Cities versus Adenas decision concluded that state statute preempts local ordinances by creating payment standards for move-in cost and fixed-term rental agreements. So this could create unnecessary and unintended legal complexity and uncertainty for housing providers and for the city of Woodinville. Our final concern is related to deposits. Damage and other deposits are designed to mitigate risk for housing providers. The fees are used to offset costs incurred due to failure to pay, damage, and other expenses that, although limited to a few bad actors, do occur. By requiring reasonable deposits to offset these costs, housing providers are also protecting their other residents. Limiting the security deposit to 1 month's rent is reasonable for standard property wear and tear, but we urge the council to include an exemption for households with pets. Pets often cause damage well beyond what typical wear and tear might result in, including chewing on fixtures, damaging mechanical systems, and other topical damage to units. A reasonable additional security deposit for households with pets is an appropriate measure to cover these unique costs and protect other residents from bearing the financial burden. In light of these concerns, we respectfully request that the council remove item 12 from the consent agenda tonight to allow for further thoughtful consideration. We kindly ask that you reconsider the proposed provisions, taking into account the points we have raised, and I look forward to continued discussions on how we can work together to create a more fair and equitable housing market in Woodinville. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Daniel Bannon.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes. Please state your name and whether you live in the city limits, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Bannon. I am not a resident of Woodinville. I am here speaking on behalf of the Rental Housing Association of Washington and nearly 6,000 members across the state, over 300 of whom live in Woodinville or own property, rental property in Woodinville. And I'm here today to urge the City Council to consider the harmful effects of Ordinance 755. Rental housing providers in Washington state have experienced significant difficulty for the past several years in keeping up to date with constantly changing legislation at all levels of government. This continued pressure and complication has led many housing providers to leave the state entirely, taking their business and investment with them. Those who are impacted the most by these policies in other cities have been the small rental housing providers who are overwhelmingly more likely to provide affordable housing to their residents. Restrictive rental housing policy has only proven to increase administrative and financial burden on these individuals, which results in increased rental rates as a whole. We've seen the same policies passed in slightly different forms across many other cities in King County, and the results are clear. These policies do not make housing more affordable. What we truly need in order to create more affordable housing in Woodinville is the encouragement of new housing creation to meet the ever-increasing demand. Policies such as the ones in front of you only further discourage housing creation and push affordable housing providers out of the market. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're on to public comment in person. First up, when I call your name, come to the microphone and state whether you live in the city limits, and you'll have 3 minutes. First is Paul Cowles.
Yes, I live in the city limits. I'm here to address you on a few topics. Number one, I'm here to request for the second time that we have new leadership by replacing the city attorney and the city manager. You guys have been running kind of in a dysfunction, and it's up to these folks to get you guys to pull together, and they haven't been able to do that yet. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you are disrespecting the people that elected the minority section of council. They were elected by the majority just like you. And unfortunately, your arrogance is palpable. And the thing is, you've got 2 excellent council people here. One of them you've tried to censor. Unfortunately, they tried to do that to me in Bothell. And the thing is, you're just plain jealous because she has better constituent relationships than the rest of the 5 of you put together. Okay, going on into other things. I understand there's some physical issues here that need to be cleaned up, and you better get that done because basically that's what your reputation is running on. 2, the next thing is, it is foolhardy for you to try to put an initiative before the people about moving the park and ride to a different location. Be careful of what you wish for. That if they were to replace that, they could not replace it at the same cost on a different piece of property. That's an asset, and the ancillary sales from the people that are using that are very, very important to the city as far as paying taxes. You guys need to work together. This is the 3rd time I've come to you to talk to that. You have a great opportunity, and you have a great staff, and you need to have the cooperation of the people that are elected to it, to office. So please do your best, but get together and pull together. One thing I learned, I was glad I was on a minority to start with. You have some compassion to what is happening here. You guys don't. Sorry.
Thank you. Shengquan Liang.
Thank you. My name is Shengquan Liang, and I live within the Woodinville city limits. And I came here to speak about a matter of utmost gravity. I've been living in the city for 14 years and plus, and this is about this alleged ethics complaint against Councilmember Mike Millman. And this is the evidence of accepting gifts, granting special privileges, and exploiting public office is a direct violation of the principles of our democracy and our public trust in this fine council. I hereby call for an independent investigation by a team that is not affiliated with the city of Woodinville to thoroughly investigate and impartially examine those allegations. Additionally, I urge the council to recuse Councilmember Millman from any discussions or any decisions involving the parties that are implicated in these violations to avoid any further conflicts of interest. On top of that, I think the city's handling of the public record request could use some makeup or reform. The delays and constant obfuscation in providing this timely information to the public, in my opinion, are unacceptable. I urge this council to implement a more prompt and a more transparent process for the public to obtain public information through the public request process. Urge the city to have a process to promptly respond to such requests and ensuring this accountability and reinforce citizens' trust in their government. I talk about this because this is not just a procedural matter. It is all about safeguarding the integrity of the council and the democratic values we all hold dear to our heart. We must act decisively to restore faith in our governance. Anything less would be a disservice to the people of Woodinville. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. That's all we have. Public comments. Next up is consent calendar.
I move to accept the consent calendar as written.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to our first business item, which is public hearing and ethics complaint against Mayor Millman. Mr. Gantz is going to kick us off, but it's my understanding that myself and Councilmember Best-Campbell are required to recuse ourselves or not deliberate from the dais or vote. I'm going to honor that, and I'm going to step away from the dais and pass the gavel to the Deputy Mayor for deliberation on this issue. Mr. Gantz.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. We are here on this business item to address and for Council to ultimately render a disposition as to a Code of Ethics complaint filed against Mayor Millman back in November of 2023. This is a process that's set forth in Chapter 2.36 of the Woodinville Municipal Code. That's the city's adopted Code of Ethics for its employees and officers. That's a supplement to the state Code of Ethics for municipal officers. Mr. Alex Campbell filed a complaint in November of 2023 alleging 2 Code of Ethics violations by the mayor. One, violating the provision that prohibits a city officer from using his position to secure special privileges or exemptions for himself. And the other, a provision prohibiting a city officer from accepting gifts from a source other than the city for a matter connected with or related to the officer's services for the city. Under your Code of Ethics process set out in 2.36 of the Municipal Code, upon receipt of a report or a complaint of an ethics violation, that is referred to the city's hearing examiner for what's called a threshold determination. At the time that this complaint was received, the city was transitioning from one hearing examiner to another, and so the hearing examiner in place at the time of the receipt of the complaint did not act on it in any fashion, as I understand. It was then referred to the incoming hearing examiner, Mr. Peregrine Sorter. His initial task was to conduct that threshold determination without any substantial investigation. The process requires him to review the report and the complaint and determine whether the facts and allegations set forth in that complaint on their face allege a violation of the Code of Ethics. In this case, Mr. Sorter reviewed Mr. Campbell's complaint and concluded that it did establish probable cause to believe that ethical code violations were or could have been committed by Mayor Millman. Having made that determination, the hearing examiner's next task was to decide whether to refer the matter to law enforcement or prosecution authorities for potential criminal charges, or to retain the matter for his own investigation. He chose the latter, to conduct his own investigation, and pursuant to your code, that occurs through an investigative hearing process. The code provides that the subject of the complaint, Mayor Millman in this case, may determine whether that hearing is to be open or closed. In this case, Mayor Millman elected to have a closed hearing. That hearing was conducted on October 7th of 2024 with witnesses testifying, including Kara Connor from Chateau Saint-Michel, Michelle Millman, Mayor Millman's wife, and Mayor Millman himself. There was also a post-hearing briefing, and Mr. Sorter required the submission of additional documents, part of a chain of emails that were the basis of the complaint. The code process requires that following that investigative hearing, the hearing examiner, based on a preponderance of the evidence, make findings of fact, conclusions of law, and provide a determination of a recommended disposition, which is to be sent to the subject of the complaint, to the complainant, and of course to the city council. Once the council receives that document, it then becomes council's obligation to dispose of the complaint. In this case, Mr. Sorter found that in view of the full evidence collected during the investigative hearing process, that the evidence did not establish violations of either of the ethical provisions identified in the complaint. Accordingly, the hearing examiner made a recommendation that council dismiss the complaint. And that puts the issue in front of the city council. Your code of ethics states that we're to schedule a public hearing. This one, at the hearing examiner, the person complained against, which is Mayor Miller, and other interested parties shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard, following which the city council may adopt, reject, amend, or modify the hearing examiner's findings, conclusions, and recommendations. Or council can choose to remand the matter for further investigation and consideration by the hearing examiner. And then the council's decision is to be made in writing, setting forth findings and conclusions supporting the decision. So we're here for that required public hearing. I'm going to start by addressing the nature of this hearing and some implications flowing from that. This is a rare kind of hearing for this council to hear. It is a quasi-judicial hearing, meaning that rather than sitting in a policy-making posture, council is sitting in an adjudicative posture, where council is tasked with deciding on a yes or no basis whether Mayor Millman committed code violations. Those violations have the potential to result in some significant sanctions, including the code makes any violation of the code of ethics a misdemeanor, so it could result in criminal charges. It is also a civil infraction, so it could result in civil penalties. Violation of the state municipal code of ethics, if that were found, also supports a civil penalty. In addition to other prospective actions such as censure, reprimand, or potential recall. So the point being that this hearing is one in which counsel is focused on making an adjudication of rights, an adjudication of whether Mayor Millman committed violations of the code of ethics or not.
Mr. Ganson, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I guess one of the questions that I have is, as a quasi-judicial body, are there specific norms in terms of recusals and definition of interested parties?
Yes, so that's where we will turn next. In a quasi-judicial hearing in Washington State, we have something called the appearance of fairness doctrine. This doctrine was originally created by our courts, so there was a common law appearance of fairness doctrine in Washington State that was subsequently partially codified into the statutes. The codified doctrine applies only to land use decisions. However, that original common law doctrine persists in our case law and applies to other non-land use related quasi-judicial hearings. And the basic proposition of the appearance of fairness doctrine is that a person with a personal interest, or even the appearance of one, in the outcome of the hearing should not participate in consideration and decision on that matter. Your counsel procedures in section 9.2.2 state that at the outset of the hearing, the presiding officer is to ask each council member to disclose any ex parte oral or written communications with a party regarding the subject of the hearing. So those would be any communications about the subject matter of the hearing occurring outside of this hearing. And also inquire whether any member has any potential appearance of fairness issues. After members provide those disclosures, the presiding officer is to ask if any person wishes to challenge any council member's participation based upon the appearance of fairness doctrine. And the code specifies, or your procedures specify, that the city attorney can render advice on that question. If a challenged council member does not recuse themselves, and there is a disagreement as to whether they're required to do so, the proceeding can be suspended pending a judicial resolution to that question. The appearance of fairness doctrine provides and identifies several broad bases for disqualification. The first is personal interests. And this is when the person, decision maker, stands to gain or lose because of the decision. And this is broadly defined. It can be a financial interest, property interest, an employment interest, but it also can be due to an associational tie or a family or social relationship between a decision maker and a party to the quasi-judicial matter, or to others with an interest in the outcome. The second broad category of disqualification is if a member has prejudged the issues, for example, has made statements declaring an unalterable position that means that they cannot be fair and unbiased in rendering a decision on the matter. And similarly, the third prong is partiality, evidenced by hostility or favoritism towards a party involved in the quasi-judicial matter. The ultimate question that the courts look at in applying the appearance of fairness doctrine is whether a fair-minded person attending the hearing would say that, one, everyone was heard who should have been heard, and two, that the decision maker was impartial. And according to section 5.8.3 of the council procedures, Any member whose participation raises a conflict of interest or appearance of fairness question under state law should not participate in consideration or decision on the matter. Now, I mentioned that the presiding officer is to poll members as to any ex parte communications or disqualifying factors. But I'm going to get ahead of that a little bit. I have made a determination that 2 members of the council are disqualified due to appearance of fairness doctrine problems. First, Mayor Millman, as the subject of the complaint, cannot also serve as a decision maker on that complaint. And while the appearance of fairness doctrine generally requires a disqualified member to remove themselves from the proceeding entirely, per the Code of Ethics, Mayor Millman has a right to be heard. So he has appropriately recused himself, but is able to participate in this hearing while not otherwise participating in the decision making. The second council member affected is Council Member Best-Campbell. She is the spouse of the complainant. Her participation would not pass the test for whether a reasonable observer of the proceedings would believe that she would be an impartial decision maker. And according to the appearance of fairness doctrine, I recommend that Councilmember Best-Campbell recuse herself and remove herself from the council chambers while this matter is under consideration. I'll pause there to entertain any questions about all of that.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
If I am recused from the proceedings, am I not allowed to make public comment at the public hearing either?
Because you are a member of the council, the appearance of fairness doctrine restrains you more than it would a member of the public. The doctrine prohibits any member with an appearance of fairness problem from participating in the process at all, including remaining in the audience.
All right, let's hope everybody takes that under advisement. Because I have a code of ethics, I will recuse myself and I will see you all after this has been adjudicated.
Thank you.
And then, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I will again, I have a little more to cover in terms of the hearing content and process. But once I've done that, I will again reiterate the need to poll the remaining members for any appearance of fairness doctrine issues.
Are you going to manage that poll? Because I know we need to cover ex parte information and statements of partiality.
Yeah, I'll assist to the degree you desire me to do so.
Okay, thank you.
So turning to what this hearing is about, I hope I framed it to understand that it's about allegations about Mayor Millman's alleged violations of the Code of Ethics. That's all that this hearing is about. It's specific to consideration of the hearing examiner's findings, conclusions, and recommended disposition. As I mentioned, the hearing examiner, the subject of the complaint, and other interested parties have a reasonable opportunity to be heard under your code. The code does not require the hearing examiner to attend, however, and he has elected not to do so, deferring to his written findings, conclusions, and recommended disposition. I have already addressed the mayor as the subject of the complaint. Because he has a right to be heard under this process, he can remain. He is able to be represented by counsel and also to speak for himself during the hearing. The complainant, Mr. Campbell, likely is an interested party in the sense that he initiated this process and should have a reasonable opportunity to be heard. And that is one basis, of course, for Councilmember Best-Campbell's disqualification. Any others, identification of an interest in this process and therefore having a right to be heard is ultimately the chair's, the presiding officer's determination. But again, I'm happy to assist and advise as the deputy mayor sees fit. Again, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask if at this time there's anyone who believes that they should be part of this proceeding as an interested party. I am looking for raised hands. Okay, I've accounted for Mr. and Mrs. Millman and Mr. Campbell. Thank you.
And I believe Mr. Millman's legal counsel, Harold Malkin, is present to assist in presentation of the mayor's case as well. Beyond that, if others appear and request to testify, that will be the chair's determination. And again, I can assist with that. Emphasizing this is not a policy hearing. It's limited to consideration of the evidence gathered by the hearing examiner and his recommendations. So the code doesn't really contemplate testimony or comments from people not involved in the issues presented by the complaint and the hearing examiner's recommendations. I mentioned that after the hearing is complete, council will deliberate and may choose among the options of adopting the hearing examiner's recommendation and accordingly dismissing the complaint, amending or modifying the hearing examiner's recommended disposition and taking action consistent with that, or remanding the matter back to the hearing examiner for further investigation and consideration if council determined there was a need for that. That completes my preliminary remarks. Again, the first order of business upon opening the hearing will be that polling of each council member to disclose any ex parte contacts with any of the parties regarding the subject matter of this hearing and any interests that may raise an appearance of fairness issue.
Councilmember Evans.
I move to open the public hearing regarding the ethics complaint against Mayor Millman. Second.
Okay, we are currently open. Any questions for Mr. Ganson? Oh,
yeah.
Please.
I have a question about the ethics code for Woodinville. Is there a threshold, like if we get a cup of coffee provided, is that a gift, or is that, where does grift kind of kick in? What's the threshold for what we're looking at?
From my standpoint, as the city attorney, this case is kind of a good example of the nuance to that question. As city officers, you certainly cannot, under the state or city codes of ethics, pursue special benefits or privileges for yourself in relation to your position. And so that includes both using your position to attempt to gain benefits for yourself or people close to you, or as well as accepting gratuities that you know are being provided in relation to the work that you do for the city. There is not really a monetary threshold to that, although most of these things are complaint based, and it's likely that a cup of coffee probably doesn't trigger a complaint, but it's best practice to rigidly avoid any violation or appearance of violating those provisions.
And one more question. Can you speak to the independence of the hearing examiner? I'm basing that on a question that came from public comment.
Sure. Hearing examiner is a neutral. He provides neutral services of investigation and more commonly conducting evidentiary hearings and reaching legal conclusions on contested matters arising under the city code. Generally, those are land use matters. Those are the most common. I suppose not all of the hearings that the hearing examiner conducts are necessarily contested. Some of the land use approvals require a hearing process and findings of fact. And the idea with the hearing examiner is to insulate both city staff as well as elected officers such as yourselves from those decisions, from having to reach findings and legal conclusions. And so that work is performed by somebody who is not an employee of the city and is generally accepted to be independent and neutral on the matters that come before him.
Any other questions? let's move forward with this hearing. I will start with Mr. Millman's counsel.
Point of order, I think we're supposed to poll each of the
Oh.
council members.
Thank you for that. Point of order accepted. Ex parte information, did you want to drive that, Mr. Ganson?
I'm sure, and I would just, so ex parte communication would be any communication outside of this process, this hearing, with a party, which I would assume to include Mayor Millman as well as Mr. Campbell, regarding the subject matter of this hearing. And so if there have been those sorts of outside the process communications, whether they're email or in-person discussions, what have you, that any member has engaged in, those should be disclosed now.
Seeing none.
And then
Statements of
similarly,
partiality.
yeah. So the other piece of the inquiry is whether, and I had laid out the various kinds of interests, personal interests, and biases that might cause an appearance of fairness problem. So now would be the time for any member who believes they may be impacted by such an appearance of fairness issue to identify that at this time.
Seeing none, last call for appearance of fairness. I believe you called for those, but is there any other concerns about appearance of fairness? Seeing none, now let's move forward with Mr. Millman's counsel.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Members of the City Council, good evening. My name is Harold Malkin. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Morgan, Lewis, and Bacchius, and I represent Mayor Millman in connection with the ethics complaint, the disposition of which is before you this evening. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you, and I'm going to assume, unless otherwise advised, that each of you is familiar with the hearing examiner's findings and recommended disposition. I apologize if I may repeat just a couple of things that Mr. Ganson said, but I hope you'll bear with me. My presentation should be relatively brief. On behalf of the mayor, I urge you to adopt the hearing examiner's thorough and well-reasoned recommendation to dismiss the ethics complaint filed against the mayor by Alex Campbell. There are two and only two issues presented by the ethics complaint and analyzed by the hearing examiner's decision. First, as Mr. Ganson said, did Mayor Millman use his official position to secure special privileges? And second, did Mayor Millman directly or indirectly receive or agree to receive something of value for a matter connected to the exercise of his official duties? The hearing examiner's factual findings and legal conclusions resolved both issues in Mayor Millman's favor, finding no violation of the city's code of ethics. Hearing examiner Sorter is an experienced, independent, and objective fact finder. His 22-page recommended disposition is based on his review of pre- and post-hearing briefs, hearing exhibits, and testimony of witnesses to whom he posed follow-up questions and whose credibility he personally assessed. Accordingly, I submit that the council should accord substantial deference to the hearing examiner's findings, conclusions, and recommended disposition. As you all are aware, Alex Campbell is the spouse of Council Member Best-Campbell, both frequent and outspoken critics of Mayor Millman. Importantly, Mr. Campbell did not provide key evidence in his possession to the hearing examiner, evidence the hearing examiner stated would likely have resulted in him declining in the first instance to even investigate Mr. Campbell's complaint. Now, how do we know that Mr. Campbell had in his possession at the time he filed the complaint the evidence in question? which was an email repeatedly referenced and relied upon by the hearing examiner. The city's website contains a copy of the city's production of documents Mr. Campbell received in response to a Public Records Act request that he filed on January 1st of 2023. That would be Public Records Request 2023-1. The city's production included the email in question, an April 22nd, 2022 communication to Mayor Millman from Chateau Saint-Michel, which is self-evidently material to the allegations directed at the mayor. Mayor Millman submitted the email as evidence to the hearing examiner during the hearing. That is hearing exhibit number 1, which appears at pages 3 and 4 of the hearing examiner's recommended disposition. And that exhibit clearly demonstrates two things. First, that Chateau Saint-Michel initiated contact with Mayor Millman about attending a summer 2022 concert and reception at the winery. Second, that Chateau Saint-Michel explicitly informed the mayor, as it routinely advises elected officials when inviting them to attend concert and other winery events, that the winery could only make concert tickets available for purchase to government employees. After reviewing hearing exhibit number 1, which provided critical context for the ensuing exchange between the mayor and Chateau Saint-Michel, together with the remainder of the correspondence between the mayor and the winery, the hearing examiner found that Mayor Millman at no time, inquired of the winery directly or indirectly about the possibility of receiving free concert tickets or anything else of value. During the 3-hour hearing on Mr. Campbell's complaint on October 7th, the hearing examiner also listened to testimony and questioned witnesses. On November 4th, he issued his 22-page findings, conclusions, and determination of recommended disposition, in which he concluded the evidence did not support Mr. Campbell's allegations of ethics violations and that his complaint should be dismissed. In addition to Mayor Millman and his wife, who accompanied the mayor to the September 3rd, 2022 concert at the winery by the band Chicago, the hearing examiner heard directly from Chateau Saint-Michel's former community relations manager, Kara Connor, who had corresponded with the mayor on behalf of the winery, and also heard via a sworn declaration from the executive director of Woodinville's Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Kimberly Ellardson. Both Ms. Connor and Ms. Ellardson testified that in all of their dealings with Mayor Millman, he has always acted with integrity and has never attempted to leverage his official position to request something of value from them or from their respective organizations. Ms. Connor further testified that when she informed Mayor Millman that the Chicago concert to which he expressed an interest in buying tickets was sold out, Mayor Millman immediately and without protest of any sort accepted that fact and responded, "That is okay." According to Ms. Connor, Mayor Millman subsequently made no effort, none, to explore with her the possibility that additional tickets might be otherwise available. Alex Campbell's continuing campaign to discredit and harass Mayor Millman, in which other members of the Campbell family have also participated, is regrettable and a costly distraction to both the mayor and to the city. What other family members and harassment am I referring to? I'd ask you to direct your attention for a moment to a brief video I'd like to have shown.
Objection.
And my point in that video, which I was not able to edit, so I apologize if it went a little off topic, is the gentleman who you saw confronting the mayor in the T-shirt, which interestingly and intentionally bore the logo of the band Chicago in an effort to provoke the mayor during that altercation or that confrontation in the city council chamber. It's a campaign by members of the family. It's persistent and respectfully, I think, should end. Now, having said that, I want to return to the hearing examiner's decision, which is before you for action. The hearing examiner's thoughtful, comprehensive, and independent recommendation to dismiss the complaint leaves no doubt as to the proper disposition of Mr. Campbell's unsubstantiated allegations. Allegations, as I said earlier, the hearing examiner stated, would likely not even have given rise to an investigation in the first instance had he initially received from Mr. Campbell all relevant communication and correspondence between the mayor and Chateau Saint-Michel. In closing, on behalf of Mayor Millman, I ask the council to adopt the hearing examiner's recommendation to dismiss the ethics complaint, based as it is on the uncontroverted evidence presented at the hearing in this matter on October 7th of this year. I thank you for your attention and consideration of this important matter, and with the Deputy Mayor's permission, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Any question? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm calling a second interested party, Mr. Campbell.
Well, I get to talk, and I don't have a 5-minute limit. That's great. So I had a nice little speech, 5 minutes. It's actually about 2.5. I will still do it. But I first must call out a couple of things. One is all of the people who signed up on the hearing examiner sign-up sheet are interested parties. Please do make sure you call upon all of them. To not do so would be indicative of a bias. Secondly, if we're talking about people who should recuse themselves, we have a bias on your dais right now. Councilmember Sarah Arndt has carried out a more egregious gift acceptance. It came to light today through some independent researchers who've reached out to me. Maybe $300+ received last year, I don't know the exact date, from a company to attend a gala. And obviously no investigation has occurred yet, but she would be biased for any potential vote tonight, given that the ruling here will affect her. So I leave that on your decision, although I do think it probably warrants a proper judicial review. With that said, I'm going to do my little speech. I'll try to keep it light because it was intended to be light and airy, and we'll go forward. I'm Alex Campbell. I live within the city limits. Thanks to our state's sunshine laws, I finally did receive a copy of this recording, the recording of the hearing examiner session, 3 hours plus. It was delivered to me on October 21st. I asked for it 3 weeks after the hearing and was told I had to wait a whole nother month. What's very fascinating is at the end of the hearing, the lawyer here also asked for that very same recording and was told he'd have it within a week. So, looks a little bad there. Okay, to my speech. Listening to the hearing, I was reminded of a very common, kind of often said as a joke, saying about lawyers. When the law is on your side, pound the law. When your facts are on your side, pound the facts. When you don't have the law and you don't have the facts, you pound the table. Overall, people should know that that this hearing was not an investigation. 3 hours of the defense attorney speaking and spinning and delivering kind of often twisted excuses that went back and forth. There was no substantive additional questioning by the hearing examiner. And I'm happy, I have posted online a transcript of the hearing as well as the original public records request, so anyone else can read it. The hearing examiner also asked for no additional documents. He is empowered to ask and subpoena any record. He didn't do anything. He accepted every exhibit as it was given. He listened to every speech. He asked a few follow-ups that repeated questions that the defense attorney had already asked. And he started the hearing specifically calling out that throughout that day, he was not going to act as a prosecutor. So for the law and order of aficionados and fans, there was no one in the room representing the people. It's not an investigation. So let's discuss the law, the underlying law that's important here. Washington State has two completely separate laws related to public officials taking gifts. One is for the state level officials, only the state level officials. And it includes a $50 carve out as well as other things, like you can go to a seminar. The other is for municipal officials, as in city officials. Woodinville only references the city officials one. And quite simply, it says no gifts, as Mr. Ganson said. It says no special privileges, zero. There's no dollar value associated. That makes it very important because the Olympia chose to have two separate laws. You can't say, oh, well, they really just meant the one. Nope, they meant two for a reason. And I thought about this and I came to a conclusion. You 7, when there are 7, are in fact more important to people's lives in Woodinville. Each and every one of you, if you're bought off, is 1/7 of all the power in the organization. Whereas Olympia has 147 elected officials in the legislature. So buying one off is really not even 1% of the power. That's why we need a really strict ethics on this hearing. That's why we need to have a very strong belief in the system. And unfortunately, this is not the first incident. Anyone who does want to go look at it can find that almost everyone up there has been taking part in serial meetings, pre-arranging your votes, and you organized a secret arrangement to get yourself a bunch of salary commissioners to give you a 67% raise this year. So there's a lot of wrong stuff here. And, you know, people will talk bad about me, that's fine, but I'm an Eagle Scout. And when I say honesty matters, it does. So that's the law. Let's talk the facts. The facts in that saying, you know, did they pound the facts? Did anyone talk about the facts? Not really. There were two undisputed points in the hearing, in the documents, everything. Mike Millman accepted a gift. Absolutely. And not only did he say so in his testimony, in the emails, but in the PDC report where he filed a $150 gift. The hearing examiner never noticed that because he never looked for the publicly available reports on the Public Disclosure Commission website. Again, a failure of the investigation. The second special privilege, or second fact, he accepted a special privilege. He accepted it, and it was offered to him because he's an elected official. So he used his elected official status. Whether or not he reached out and said, hey, I'm a mayor, he only received the invitation because he was elected official. Kara Connor of Chateau Saint-Michel specifically admitted this in her emails, specifically admitted this in the hearing. They send this invitation to elected officials. Well, why do they do that? They don't like losing money. They're giving away a special privilege for a reason, and it is a special privilege. Not everyone in the general public gets this invite. Most people pay for it. And through that special privilege, Mike Millman was able to buy sold-out concert tickets at face value. If someone's going to say that that's not a privilege, call your nearest Taylor Swift fan. Ask about face value tickets to a concert. So that's it. The law's language is clear. A fifth grader could understand this language. The facts are clear, black and white, and other government officials have said so. So what went on in that 3-hour meeting? Well, they spent a lot of time talking about the dollar amounts. Oh, was it $20? Was it $30? Was it $75? Zero is the limit, so it doesn't matter. They spent a lot of time talking about how many minutes were in the tent of the reception. And this reception, by the way, is the exact same reception that most people pay $75 to get into. But Kara Connor invented a new level and said, well, this is a different reception. Same tent, same offerings. And it doesn't matter if you're in there for 1 minute or zero. You were given the permission to go into it. That's a gift. Finally, there was a lot of talk about, oh, we didn't eat wine. We didn't drink wine. We didn't eat food. Again, doesn't matter. You had the option. But oddly enough, for all the claims I paid for wine and all the showing receipts for paying face value on those tickets, they never showed a receipt for the wine. And Mike Millman, in his letter to the Woodinville Weekly on October 13th, says he stood in line to get wine, not buy it, with Mark Mullet. Mark Mullet obviously was a state official and was probably in the $75 or maybe $50 reception. So was Mark Mullet buying the wine too? Or was he picking up free wine? There's a whole lot of holes here that a prosecutor would have punched a hole in. So the laws weren't on his side. The facts weren't on his side. And so that's why we heard a lot of pounding of the table today. I kept a rough count, and I think I missed a few. My name's been used 13 times, maybe 14. The hearing examiner very specifically in his report says it doesn't matter who made the complaint. The facts are the facts, and the facts are to be reviewed based on the actual letter of the law. So, throwing me under the bus is your choice, but that's not an effective tactic. It just shows the weakness of the argument. So, I know you've already all made up your mind. Another prearranged vote. We certainly know Sarah Arndt is biased. Yeah, I just please be honest with the public. Do not go and tell us there wasn't a gift. Do not go and tell us there wasn't a special privilege. That's just, that's just insulting people's intelligence. And, in Woodinville, we are all equal. It's a special place. It's actually something that's bugged me a little bit. Someone did not get to go to the concert because he took the tickets. And we will never know who that was, but someone didn't get to. And that's not fair.
Thank you. Mrs. Michelle Millman?
Thank you. My name is Michelle Millman. I've been a City of Woodinville resident for 29 years. Full disclosure, I've been married to Mayor Mike Millman for more than 27 years. Witnessing what has gone on for well over a year regarding the Chicago concert at the Chateau has been ridiculous. A ridiculous amount of staff time and taxpayer money that could be better utilized continuing to do even more great things for our city. I was at that Chicago event with Mike, as stated tonight. We paid for those concert tickets and did not ask for or receive them for free. As I told the hearing examiner in October, I've known Mike for nearly 45 years and have never known him to ask for free things or to accept gifts so he could get something in return. It is just not who he is. I'm often with him when he's offered coffee or wine, etc., and he just doesn't accept it. Since Mike's been on council these past 5 years, I've watched him work incredibly hard, just as he always has, in serving the community. His passion, as many of you know, is giving back and doing good things for this amazing city where Mike and I raised our boys, now young men. The fat council member, Rachel Best-Campbell's husband, Alex, who you heard from just now and hear from at every city council meeting, did not give the hearing examiner all of the emails he had access to, speaks volumes. As you heard in the final report, if he'd seen all those emails prior, the hearing examiner would not have even heard the case, and we wouldn't be here tonight discussing this. Again, to me personally, as a City of Woodinville resident, it is a shame that taxpayer money and city staff and council energy has been wasted on this. Thank you.
Mr. Millman.
Hello, my name is Mike Millman. I'm council member, mayor of Woodinville. I've been a resident since 1992. That makes it almost 33 years. I regret that we're here. As many have stated, that we are wasting a considerable amount of taxpayer time, staff time, council time. It's my understanding, according to the city manager, that this whole thing has cost the taxpayers $10,000, which is something that we would better served for the public. That's a shame. This is an ongoing effort by the Campbell family to waste taxpayer time and dollars. We've had to settle a lawsuit based on a harassment by the Campbells for $35,000. I have numerous PDRs from Mr. Campbell. I didn't count them. They're just numerous here of all the PDRs, and some of them are very obviously fishing expeditions on just communications over a certain period of time. They don't relate to any subject. This has been ongoing. So why are we here? So if you'll notice, Mr. Campbell has 2 cameras. That's pretty typical of a council meeting that's already being filmed and can be viewed by the public. What his pattern is he'll take video and he'll slice and dice it and take everything out of context. And I state that why? Because that's exactly what he did here. If Mr. Campbell, Rachel Best-Campbell's husband, had actually provided all the emails in his possession, we wouldn't be here wasting $10,000 and all the staff time and the time of people that came down here to see the council meeting. So, and I had significant amount of time with my council, and it's just a lot of energy that has been wasted. I provided you some other documentation and you can see a little bit of that here. Without any evidence, Mr. Campbell likes to disparage people. The first one here that shows, he states the proposed budget will be the first ever deficit in Woodinville history. That is absolutely falsehood. Our last budget was $4 million surplus. Then he goes on to cite 4 council members stacking the budget with goodies for themselves. This is a pattern of harassment and disparagement and bullying by the Campbell family. I have the other document at your disposal here where he calls out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 council members for capital projects, whatever. This is a pattern of what they do, and we saw a video of where the family is here harassing and trying to intimidate officials, and that has led ourselves to have discussions immediately after this of adding $130,000 to harden or add security to city council. We have Consistently now, we have King County sheriffs at our meetings, and that's something where they would be better served in the public doing other things. This is a pattern, and I'm pointing it out to you because we frankly shouldn't be here, and I'm sorry that we are. Why is this happening? So this all started, Councilmember Best-Campbell and I had a pretty cordial relationship on the council, leading into the election of mayor in January of 22. She was lobbying to become mayor at that time. I did not support that. And then she was lobbying to become deputy mayor. I did not support that. And in fact, I was the vote, the swing vote that went to our deputy mayor, James Randolph, which I'm thankful that I did for many reasons that I've just stated and more. But I'm going to just show you or speak to why we're here and what is actually going on. These are quotes on texts that I got the night of that election when I was first elected mayor. Quote, "You were the deciding vote, Mike, except you didn't vote for me. That's the key. I had 3, they had 3. You made your choice. Political expediency." I stated we will be better off if we find a way to work together. I'm sorry I had a shitty vote decision. I absolutely 100% advocated for you and didn't know who would nominate who. That's my style, and you know that. The city will be better off if we don't devolve into us versus them. Her response was, I listened to their divisive topics last night on everything. Everything was a wedge issue. Equity and inclusion, hardly. They want for the Westridge and themselves. They're Susan's acolytes through and through. I stated, I don't believe that. She went on to say, you know you'd be the swing vote for them in November. You should have been honest with me instead of setting me up for a scenario that I couldn't win. Quote, why did I have to win all 4 of them? 4 votes I win. I met with Sarah, listened to her lies. Quote, I advocated a unified council to push forward an agenda against the resistance of our city manager, Brandon. I did my part. She says, I had Les, Al, and me. That's 4 council members. That's an OPMA violation. You gave them legitimacy at no cost. James has no idea how to be a council member, much less set an agenda or run a meeting. James is over his head, but you have to get your picture next to his and take credit for being woke. You were the swing vote. Come on, don't play dumb. Own your decision. You voted woke, nothing to do with what was good for the city. I'm sorry I had to bring this forward. This has been in January of 22. I've kept it quiet, but this is beyond the pale. So I'm making this on the public record. Further, what you can, councilmember's husband consistently doesn't identify himself at council meetings as the spouse, and we've heard today why that can often be a conflict of interest. He goes by One Woodinville or Alex C, and he constantly making videos that are out of context. They spent a significant amount of money on ads. There's actually a PDC violation that he doesn't, of course, motion where he spent $1,700 towards my opponent and didn't identify himself as who he is. That's a violation too. I wanted to speak to some of the other things. So 2 years ago, I don't know, spring, March, whenever it was, yeah, I was invited to the concert. I said I would pay for them. I paid for them, and I think we have a receipt that I'm going to have shown. And I was invited to a reception, which I accepted. I was there for 10, 15 minutes, 20, somewhere in that ballpark, said hi to a few people. And yes, I did talk with Senator Mullet, as I said here in public in the Woodinville Weekly. And it was fortunate that I did, because later on, when it came to House Bill 1110, Senator Mullet was able to make an amendment for Woodinville based partly on that relationship. I had dinner at his house and I was discussing the impacts of House Bill 1110 on a city our size and on our areas that are on septic. That amendment exempted Woodinville from the most destructive or harmful effects of House Bill 1110 on Woodinville. That exempted areas that are on septic
it exempted cities that are under 25,000. We qualify under both of those on large parts of this city, or the whole city and large parts of the city. So that was very beneficial. During that reception, I was there briefly. My wife and I did not accept anything free. We just said hi, shook a few hands, and then we went to our seats. Later on, I did not. My wife bought a glass of wine, and later on, I bought, and he neglected to say that, I bought gelato. If everybody remembers Nutty Squirrel Gelato that's set up over here, they had a food cart there, and I wanted to try it. I'm a big gelato fiend. So he keeps interrupting. I appreciate that he doesn't make objections from the audience and interrupting. That would be appreciated. Further, it was mentioned that Councilmember Best-Campbell has been censured twice. You saw the video where she said, "Censure me," and she was. And the censures were based on her behavior in violation of our rules and putting millions of dollars at risk in our grant pursuit. There's two, one dated May 21st, 2024, and September 30th, 2023. Both councils voted at that time. With that, I have a video that I'd like to play. By my count, the Best-Campbell family has disparaged and tried to intimidate and bully 10 council members, at least 2 volunteer planning commissioners, several compensation commissioners, and the past mayor, Gary Harris, was disparaged at a meeting at their own house, where I attended, my wife attended. the planning commissioner, chair, and vice chair were in attendance. This is a pattern, and this cannot be rewarded. This should be something that does not invade Woodinville. Woodinville is a great place to live and be, and this type of politics and this type of division and bullying, and it should be discouraged. I'm going to close with Alex Campbell mentioned something about the PDC. Well, he had made a complaint with the PDC about that reception that I attended, which I told everybody publicly, and he declared it as something called VRC. I think it's Vintage Reserve Club or something like that, which apparently is a $75 gift or something like that. Two years after the fact, I didn't remember a name. I didn't even know what that was. I did attend the reception. I didn't accept anything free. And Kara Connor, who extended the invitation, identified it very clearly that it was not VRC. So in the PDC, I placed it as VRC because I didn't know that had a name. I don't even think what I attended had a name. But again, I didn't accept anything. And he also alleged that there was some type of attempt to ingratiate myself with Chateau Saint Michel because of the transfer station. That's ridiculous. Months before that, council had a vote that I voted affirmative to oppose the siting of a transfer station in Woodinville. I've been one of the most, if not the most vocal critic or in opposition of a transfer station in Woodinville. I'm on the record of doing it. I did ask Chateau Saint Michel if they wanted to provide a quote for an upcoming Woodinville Weekly article that I was showing opposition to the transfer station. So I sat right there next to Councilmember Rachel Best-Campbell and voted to oppose the transfer station, which he then alleges that I was trying to seek favor with Chateau Saint Michel. It's ridiculous, and this is what they do. Take things out of context with their videos. They're running ads. I don't know if anybody's seen them. They're spending thousands of dollars on ads on YouTube, Instagram, mailers. You have in front of you just one of several mailers that go out disparaging council. This is not something that should be rewarded. And in fact, in future, I would encourage council to take action on it. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the guidance we have before us is we can accept the hearing examiners or make our own suggestion as we deem fit. Yes, Councilmember Taylor.
We have people that signed up for comment.
My understanding, this is
It's a public hearing, right?
This is not a public hearing. It was a quasi-judicial activity, which is what my understanding from Mr. Ganson. Quasi-judicial does not allow public hearing. A public hearing would be a different activity.
The ordinance says public hearing.
Yes.
Mr. Ganson, are you currently available to speak to this?
I am, yes. I know the ordinance uses the terminology public hearing, and it is in the sense that this is a hearing being conducted in the public, but the Code of Ethics provides that interested parties have the right to be heard. And I believe you have heard from the interested parties. You've heard from the complainant, and you've heard from the subject of the complaint, most importantly. And so that, I think that covers the required hearing. The chair, the presiding officer could certainly ask those who have signed up and ask to speak what their interest is, and make a determination of whether there actually is an interest in the legal sense. Mayor Millman's interest is that he's been accused of crimes, violations of the Code of Ethics. That's the kind of interest we're talking about. Mr. Campbell's interest is that he initiated this process. That's the kind of interest that code is referring to in my interpretation. And so I suppose, again, Deputy Mayor, you could
Yeah,
poll
as
the people
a
who have signed up to ask
quasi-judicial,
whether they have that interest.
Okay.
yeah, as a quasi-judicial action, I do not want to hear public comment. One of the things we don't do at quasi-judicial actions is hear public comment. Certainly, we can save that public comment for the second public comment period. Interested parties means people that have standing in this context. She has standing as being one of the accusers listed in the complaint.
Point of clarification. So it was pointed out that the public was not invited or part of the proceedings, so this would be the only time that some of the public would be able to comment.
We do, as a council, have a second public hearing, a place where they can do a public comment, and we'll accept those public comments, as we always do. But as part of this hearing, we are not going to hear public comment in a hearing.
Point of order, the audience is not supposed to interrupt the dais.
Thank you. Please maintain order, sir. I'll get back to the actual item at hand. I was saying that we can put forth what we want to do as an action or amend what's been put forth by the hearing examiner. Any questions to that activity? Is it a question for the activity, Mr. Taylor?
We're going to have a discussion, right?
This is that discussion.
Okay. All right. The information that I heard has, and we found today with another accusation for a council member, that we have gifts provided and a claim that there should be a zero tolerance or zero acceptance from outside entities, receiving something that the public that isn't speaking today, the public cannot receive. Should we clarify that our council, should we take action that our council ethics is zero tolerance?
Point of order.
Yeah.
This is off topic. We need to stay to the topic
what
here.
we're talking about
we are
is
not getting
the
into
appearance
this.
of
Not
fairness.
accepted.
Yeah.
Go ahead and finish whatever you have
Yeah,
to say. I am getting to the point where I'm requesting the questions.
Okay, so I'm looking at appearance of fairness, and I see a member of the public that is raising the question, and and it's being pushed back. If we have a zero policy, then we would be clean, and we wouldn't have that appearance. We wouldn't have the public questioning actions and gifts and things like that. So should we, as a council, do something about gifts and set the policy going forward? Because it sounds like it wasn't clear, and there were gifts that were accepted. In my opinion, I hear the parking and the tent, or the there was something there that the average person wouldn't get. And that was a courtesy or a gift, and that had to do with being a council member, and then another council member being invited by another entity doing business with us or working with us. If we have zero, we don't have a problem. I think we need to define that, clarify our ethics. We kind of signed.
Thank you for that comment. Any other questions before we, Councilmember Evans?
Thank you. So maybe Mr. Ganson or Mr. Buchanan, can we speak to the hearing examiner again? Because I think that it has gotten lost in a lot of the comments and testimony that's happening. Is the city examiner an employee of the city or affiliated with the city, other than being retained as third-party counsel to make a judicial ruling?
He is not an employee of the city. He is a contract service provider to the city. His contract obligations are to provide neutral services to the city. So neutral independent investigative services and hearing services.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware, he has no other affiliation with the city.
And from what you said, Mr. Ganson, and from what I read in our council packet, it sounds as if Mr. Campbell presented incomplete evidence to the original complaint. And if complete evidence would have been provided, as was provided in the public records request, that the hearing examiner would never have moved forward with this hearing. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of Mr. Sorter's determination, yes.
So once the hearing examiner had the full details, had the full record of all the emails going back and forth, that's when the hearing examiner determined that there was no ethics issue here.
Correct. I believe obtaining the full evidence, the full context of the exchange led him to not only state that the evidence did not establish violations, but that the evidence established that there were not violations.
And how much money and time and staff time has been spent towards this effort? Do we have any estimates?
An estimate that I have just based off of the hearing examiner's time, Mr. Yancey's time, our city clerk's time, I think the $10,000 number that was mentioned previously is probably a fair estimate for that.
Okay. So we've spent hours and hours and hours, at least around $10,000. And if the full evidence would have been turned over at the beginning, we would have saved all of this time. I want to know, is there any redress that the city can ask for continuing to point out defamatory claims against the mayor or others with partial evidence or just veiled accusations?
Your code of ethics, WMC 2.36.070, makes a knowingly false charge of misconduct a misdemeanor. So that could be subject to prosecution by the city's prosecutor.
Thank you.
If nothing else, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Evans.
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Public hearing is now closed. I will entertain a second motion for our determining factor. Yes, Councilmember Edwards.
I move that the City Council adopt the hearing examiner's findings, conclusions, and determination of recommendation, disposition, dismissed November 6, 2023 ethics complaint against Mayor Mike Millman, and direct that the city attorney to prepare a written decision consistent with this action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We've had a comment period, and I don't think there's anything to debate for this period based on this being a quasi-judicial action. Therefore, we do want to take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Arndt?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
No.
Deputy Mayor Randolph?
Yes. 4-1? It passes. Thank you so much. We'll be moving on to our next order of business. Please tell Councilmember Best-Campbell she can rejoin us, as well as the mayor. Before we take on our next order of business, that was pretty long and arduous and probably stressful for a number of people. Let's take a 5-minute break to recuperate.
Business item number 15, we can get to the meat of the city's business. Here is 2025-2026 biennial budget-related ordinances and resolution. Mr. Buchanan or Mr. Fritz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, we've got Mr. Fritz. Wasn't feeling great today, but he did join us remotely, so I think he's going to give the presentation here this evening.
Sorry about the delay there, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Council. I actually didn't have any sound from your break until Mr. Buchanan spoke, so I wasn't sure if it was my turn or not. I'd like to say good evening to you and celebrate a little bit in that hopefully this will be our last presentation on the budget this year. We do have an obligation by statute to adopt a budget by the end of the year. So I have for you this evening a couple of slides. The first one just talks about the objectives. There's 4 budget-related ordinances. Staff is recommending second reading and adoption of those ordinances tonight, and then approval of a resolution establishing our fees. The 4 ordinances amends the 23-24 biennial budget. It adopts a new building valuation table, which has an impact on the amount that's charged for building permits. The third ordinance is the adoption of the 25-26 budget, and then the fourth ordinance is adopting the authorized employee positions pay and benefits for 2025. My presentation is only a couple slides, and that's because we spent several months talking about the budget, going over the details of the proposed budget by the city manager. And at the last meeting, all of the ordinances were presented and the fee table was presented to council and discussed in detail. So the slides that I have for you this evening are only changes that were made to the one ordinance and the resolution for tonight's consideration. So in ordinance number 778, adopting the authorized employee positions pay and benefits for 2025, I made an error and included in the first reading, which happened at the last meeting, a 3.6 general wage increase for the salary table on Appendix D of the ordinance, which was for the represented employees for 2025. And the reason that's an error is because the represented employees bargaining agreement actually expires at the end of this year. We are currently in active negotiations with that union and the bargaining unit, and it is a common and consistent practice for us to maintain the salaries of the current year until that new agreement is reached. So the revision was to pull out the salary table that was included in the first reading and put a corrected salary table into Appendix D of this ordinance, which would maintain the 2024 salaries until a bargaining agreement is reached. The second change has to do with the fee table that was presented to council. If you recall at the last meeting, I indicated that Mr. Grumbaugh and I were discussing the possibility of proposing fee revisions for right-of-way use permits. There were really 2 issues that were coming to light after the fee structure that was put in place back in 2021. One, that for the right-of-way use permits, the way we have it tiered out, it's in 5 different tiers of linear feet. It was proportionately more costly for shorter linear runs. And then secondly, that in our effort to make sure that we're meeting council's objective of 100% cost recovery for permitting services, that we may have priced these permits to the point where we're prohibiting expansion of new infrastructure. And so we're proposing two changes to the right-of-way permits. One would be to reduce or to change the tiers to 8 tiers, which would allow for the lower, for the permits to be lower for shorter linear feet runs. And we're proposing to reduce the overall fees within those tiers by a third. We don't believe that this will impact our ability for 100% cost recovery of the permitting process overall. And we're hopeful that it will be enough that it won't, that the fees will still allow for expansion of new infrastructure in our right-of-ways. And just to make sure everybody understands, the type of infrastructure that goes into those right-of-ways are typically utilities. And so it could be power, it could be communication lines or cable lines and whatnot. So there's that proposed change to the ordinance, or that change is in the resolution that's in your packet today. And then finally, the last slide is just 5 wonderfully crafted recommended motions for the council to consider tonight, and hopefully we can put this one to bed. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Fritz? Councilmember Best-Campbell.
So can you go back to the tiers slide?
Ooh, I could if I didn't click on the button I just did. Hang on a second.
Thank you. I know you can't. May you please? How about that?
I will. All right, the tiers. You want the this slide?
Yes. So you're adding more tiers and you're reducing the overall fee. So that is under the. I just want to clarify this. This is to make sure that it is not cost prohibitive to get some of the, and it's mostly cable and telecom infrastructure that you're referring to in this slide.
Well, I mean, all utilities tend to use our right-of-way, but the build-outs that are most likely to bring new services would be cable, fiber optic, that kind of thing, yes.
Okay, and even with this reduction of fees, you don't have any concerns about the fee structure paying for the permitting department?
No, we don't. We're seeing a higher volume than anticipated for these types of fees, which brought in more revenue, potentially more revenue than what our modeling predicted. And so potentially with the way the fees were currently listed, we could actually be recovering more than what we need. Okay. So it's precautionary in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I move to pass the second reading and adopt ordinance number 774, amending the 2023-2024 biennial budget as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. As the maker of the motion, would you like to comment?
No additional details here, sir.
Anybody else like to comment? I would like to say a few words. That staff worked really hard on this budget, and I am really proud Woodinville has a budget surplus. There's a lot of jurisdictions. I travel in a lot of areas around and talk to many jurisdictions that are running deficits, and Woodinville has a budget surplus. Put that in bold letters, a budget surplus, and we're not raising taxes in the city of Woodinville, and yet we're still getting tremendous amount of infrastructure and parks and trails and bridges and recreational and all kinds of things, safety items, surfacing, done. And we're doing that thanks to the hard work of staff, is really knocking it out of the park. And also council has taken on, for the past 2.5 years, an effort that's really paid off. We've received $22 million, give or take, in grants to improve our parks and trails and infrastructure. And that's a record amount for Woodinville. I believe it's a record amount even if you combine the Woodinville history totaled up to this point. So we're able to have a balanced budget and still get a tremendous amount of work done with a staff of 50 and a small city. And I'm really proud of this budget. So congratulations to everybody. So can we have, I guess, we have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Best-Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor Millman?
Yes.
Councilmember Arndt?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Randolph?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I move to pass second reading and adopt ordinance number 778, establishing authorized employee positions, pay ranges, and benefits for 2025 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
This one I will say something to, just because I have learned to appreciate our staff, the amount of information and the level of care that they put into things that they have to put together. I know it's not easy, and as a council, we demand a lot, and we will continue to demand a lot from the staff. It's part of our job, and we really, really do appreciate you doing yours. Hopefully, this passing of this ordinance puts us and continues our structure where we can continue doing everything in the structure that we want to do.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
Once again, with this ordinance, I do want to get a full salary survey where we look at the length and breadth of all the benefits so that we're not just looking at one metric. There are a lot of different things that go into pay. I know that we've talked about putting a lot of this stuff back in-house, but I do think I would like to start keeping it as have a third party sort of give us a template that we could follow later to make sure that we're following the trends and we're not just guessing as we go. So I'm fine with the employees and pay ranges now, but ultimately there is more information that I've been asking for 2-3 years now, and I really think we owe it to the public to go through and give a very thorough review of these employee positions and make sure that we're giving staff what is fair, but also what's reasonable for a city our size and what we're asking our employees to do.
I'm going to echo Deputy Mayor's comments. I really, working closely with the staff, they're really doing an amazing job. I mean, every day I witness them pulling off miracles that we ask of them. So I really appreciate that. We did do a salary survey. When was the last salary survey we did, City Manager?
Mr. Fritz, do you remember when we did the last one? Time is all just kind of melding together at this point, so.
That's why I'm asking.
I believe we concluded one in 2023.
So we had a recent one, and I would like to highlight that salary survey also highlighted several positions that were, based on that survey, were underpaid. So that was followed up with not a lot of effort. So I'm a big fan of salary surveys when appropriate, but they should mean something if and when we take them on. So the city manager is the overseer of staffing. That's what his job is to manage the staff and the daily operations of the city, and that, in my opinion, includes recommendations on salary and budget and staffing. So I defer to the city manager, and I am confident that if he sees a problem, that he will come to council and ask for it, as he's done this year. In addition, for some staffing, I know we just had a pretty lengthy. I think we had 102 applicants for community engagement. They're in the process of hiring for that, so we're looking forward to that conclusion. So again, staff is doing a great job, and look forward to 2025. Councilmember Evans.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate. So this year, the staff has gone above and beyond. We were able to do a community engagement plan in-house without having to spend upwards of over $100,000. And that really was a lot of extra work for the staff. We've seen them at all sorts of community events, engaging, being available to get out there and speak. I mean, these are above and beyond the day-to-day job duties, right? And I think over the bomb cyclone time, when the city staff probably dealing with their own power outages at home, they hustled in here to open not just this chamber, but down the hallway, and at times had more than 100 people in here. That is dedicated staff. That is something that is so above and beyond and caring and serving this community. So I just want to say I'm fully in support of this, and I just thank every single person on our staff, because I think we're really, really lucky with the people that we have in this city.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yeah, I just want to echo that I always personally believe that policy is great, but without the personnel to actually implement it, it doesn't really mean anything there. Having an adequate professional staff like we do have here who goes above and beyond is what allows Woodinville to be what it is, and be able to maintain that work culture is so important by looking at these salaries and be able to provide fair and competitive compensation. We need to be able to keep our talent here, develop our talent to make sure that we have a long-term success here in the city by making sure we do support the staff who make the city run.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
So part of what my point is that we need to identify where we're in a biennium cycle. We want salaries to equal out. Do we want it higher at the beginning? Do we want it higher at the end? There needs to be strategy discussions, and hey, we have great staff, let's just keep adding more money is not fiscally responsible for the people that we actually represent. So yes, staff does a wonderful job. I get that. We all understand staff does a great job, but we're not just here to hand out money. This is taxpayer money, and having a robust analysis really isn't problematic. It isn't a comment on staff. It isn't a comment on the public. It's called good hygiene. So it's clear this council is going to keep it in-house and keep it hidden. I'm asking for something a little more robust and to have an actual trajectory of where we want things to look like, what are the levers that we can pull, and how can we access them. But it's clear that's not going to happen.
Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Evans.
Do we remember, I think it was maybe June of 2023 when we had a public review of the salary commission?
The salary commission for...
Or not the salary, I'm sorry, the salary review, where we had somebody go external and take a look at certain positions and help benchmark. And we found that some were right in line, some were low.
Yeah, I think Mr. Fritz said that was 23.
Yeah, and so I find it difficult to say that we're keeping anything hidden. We did that publicly.
Any other comments, questions? Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Evans saying that it was hidden. These are all public figures. We had the discussion in public. We had the salary survey results in public, and it was a little uncomfortable. There were people here that were, by the salary surveys, underpaid. And, you know, we do our fiduciarily responsible measures, and this is what the city manager's job is to manage personnel, manage the daily operations of the city, and come to us with salary recommendations and proposals and retention issues and benefits, and that's his job. We get to weigh in on what we think of that, but it's his job to make those proposals, and I think he's doing a great job, and I look forward to that continuing. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Best-Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor Millman?
Yes.
Councilmember Arndt?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Randolph?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
I move to pass second reading and adopt ordinance number 777, adopting the 2025-2026 biennial budget as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Comments, Deputy Mayor?
I've looked at this budget as us actually determining what the citizens of Woodinville want and taking action with our funding. And I will continue to believe that. And I appreciate it, and I imagine we'll hear about it if people don't. So far, everything that I have heard from my constituency, they're happy with the direction that we're headed in. Mayor Millman pointed out several times about the funding that we're pulling in as grants and different funding sources and different partners that we're working with. And I think that's something that we can appreciate as part of this biennial budget.
Councilmember Arndt.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo some of the comments that have been made. Staff has done a fantastic job presenting this budget, and I do feel that it is in line with the desires of our community, which is to invest in our infrastructure, invest in projects that increase safety for pedestrians and drivers, invest in the fabric of our city government by changing some staffing positions around to allow us to be more effective. I see this budget as a triumph, especially compared to our neighboring jurisdictions who are really struggling right now to get to that bottom line. And I think that this is both reflective of the dedication of our staff and the work of the council to pull in funding from the federal, the state, and the county level to allow us to do more than we could have if we were only reliant on our tax base here in the city. So we are able to take on more projects, we are able to make more improvements, and we're able to keep taxes from increasing here in the city because of that work.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
I said this at the last meeting, and I'll say it at this one. There are certain things in this budget that I have a real problem with. I've enumerated it over the last year, so anyone who doesn't know hasn't been paying attention. There are things here that the public really still is sort of uncertain about. Mostly it's speed cameras or cameras that are going to be ticketing people. There's still an uncertainty about that. There was a lot of concern about it, but this was pushed through. There are other things in the budget that I think the public will hear about probably next year that they may find different than what they've been hearing before. Budgets change, but there are good things in this budget. We're finally addressing some of the basic needs of kids who are walking to school in the dark. They had, that had to wait from another biennium to this one. Unfortunately, 136th Avenue didn't get the speed bumps that I had asked council to vote on. $5,000 each. Pedestrian safety is throughout the city, focusing it on areas where you have a lot of kids where pedestrian seems like a no-brainer. I'd like to see us, when we go out for grants for sidewalks, to look at all neighborhoods and not just one at a time. There's a lot of opportunities to bring everyone up to the same level instead of having one area that has shiny sidewalks and another area that has gravel and a broken curb. So I think there are ways that we can improve this budget and its implementation, but there are definitely things that are concerning to me, and I will vote for the budget because there are things in there that finally do need to get addressed for the community, but there are other things that just don't seem right to me.
Anyone else? I'm just going to briefly state that we have a budget that is tackling public safety. We have a budget that's tackling infrastructure. We have a budget that's tackling pedestrian safety, bike safety. We have a budget that's tackling parks and trails and recreation on a scale that Woodinville has never taken on. And that is something. We're doing a linear park. We're doing an East Rail corridor. We're doing a new bridge. We got a roundabout coming. We got sidewalks near schools coming. We've got lots of road overlays. We got other public safety items. This is a really good budget, and I'm proud to vote for it. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Best-Campbell?
Yes.
Mayor Millman?
Yes.
Councilmember Arndt?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Randolph.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're on a roll.
I move to pass the second reading and adopt ordinance number 775, amending the building valuation table in section number 21.62.060 of the Woodinville Municipal Code.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Deputy Mayor Randolph.
Not a lot to say for this one, so I will pass.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
I move to approve resolution number 650, establishing the fees and charges for services for 2025.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Deputy Mayor Randolph.
This is one that we actually spent a good bit of time talking about, how to actually find balance where we keep services affordable, but also raise them to where they are reasonable. I appreciated that discussion, and this is the final result of that, and look forward to that still being on balance and keeping us in budget.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Business item number 16, approval of the 2025 legislative agenda. Mr. Hill.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Jared Hill, and I will be presenting the proposed 2025 legislative agenda. At your last meeting, Council discussed some different legislative priorities and provided guidance to staff on edits to be made for tonight's meeting. The Washington State Legislature will convene on Monday, January 13th, 2025, and this session is the first session of the biennium. It will be a long session of 105 days and concludes on April 27th. So given that Olympia is not looking to be in a great position for funding requests, we have transitioned this from a state legislative agenda to include local and federal as well. This will give staff the opportunity to speak to council positions to audiences that are best in tune with the specific request. Locally, we fall in District 3 on the King County Council and are represented by Councilmember Sarah Perry. We hope to work in collaboration with King County to deliver on Legislative Priority 2, which is funding for the proposed NPRSA Community and Aquatic Center. On the state side, we fall in District 1 and are represented by Senator Stanford and Representatives Dewar and Kloba. Our state representatives and their staff are well informed on the projects taking place in Woodinville, and it is great news to see that Senator Stanford will be the vice chair of the operating budget. With council taking a position on Initiative 2117, we're going to be working closely with our state offices to ensure the $5 million Move Ahead Washington dollars make it into this next biennium. And following the November election, the city will be in a very different position for federal support compared to years past. Our federal representatives are committed to doing what they can to help get Woodinville projects across the finish line, but we're still waiting information on what CPF funding and the new administration's priorities are that we may be able to collaborate on. And I placed a copy of this at your seat, and it's also in your agenda packet, but here you will see the proposed 2025 legislative agenda that, in addition to other council adopted documents, will serve as a tool for communicating the priorities of the City Council to the legislature. This document reflects the additions made by council at your last meeting and includes items such as supporting fully funding local school districts. These three goals would be of tremendous impact to Woodinville residents and are clean and concise for quick 5 to 10 minute interactions we see from legislatures during the craziness of session. And then on the reverse side of the legislative agenda, you'll see a more comprehensive list of goals that staff can use to make appropriate comments on bills when they fall within these categories. And kind of next steps here. So tonight, asking for council to consider adopting the proposed legislative agenda, and following that, we will share the agenda with all of our associations and delegation, and legislative session kicks off in just a couple of weeks with AWC City Action Days in February, and we'll be going from there. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Hill? Councilmember Arndt?
Thank you. I was wondering if you could spend a little bit more time talking through on the backside, on the detailed legislative agenda. In the Human Services section, there is a bullet point asking for supporting encampment resolution work in the cities and private lands and advocating for increased state funding for encampment removal on local right-of-ways. Can you just talk a few minutes about that?
Sure, of course. That item came, actually, I believe, from both Redmond and Bellevue, and AWC's legislative agenda was an item that they brought forward following the Grants Pass decision earlier this year. And it's not something we have a particular interest on in Woodinville, but it was an item that it's not necessarily going to directly impact us, but it shows opportunity to be in lockstep with the rest of East Side cities.
Okay, thank you. So it's not something that we see an issue of, but we want to stay in step with AWC and our neighboring jurisdictions. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Randolph.
Given the concern that was just announced by Councilmember Arndt, is there a way we could remove that bullet point and amend? Just because I think that that is a definitive hotbed, and I'm not sure everyone on the council fully supports that.
Of course, anything on here can be removed, added, and or amended and passed as amended tonight.
All right, that would be a recommended amendment.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
So yesterday, Governor Inslee said the thing that we've all heard, which is $10 to $12 billion, and he was very clear that the budget deficit is so severe that they said there's absolutely no way that any more money is going to move anywhere. In terms of the Aquatic Center property acquisition, is there something that we can put in its place, since we know we're not going to get that money this year because the budget is so buttoned up? Is there something that we'd like to move into that place when we're talking in Olympia? I think it would fall on deaf ears, and if we only have 3 bullet points, like let's pick something better. We could do tenant protections. We could do, we could move up our local control over zoning. I think this would be fine on a federal level, but we're just not going to get anything. And I don't want to waste the 5 minutes that we get on something that's just going to kind of get a chortle, and well, that's really nice. So I don't know. The back is sort of, I know it's not necessarily prioritized, but I would vote for definitely more local control, or really let's focus on getting transit service back here. I mean, we've waited long enough. I would be in favor of either of those two, but probably, now that I think about it, definitely more towards the transit portion of it.
I'm sorry, did you?
Oh, I'm happy to speak to that, if that's all right. I think you raised an excellent point, and I probably didn't make it clear enough in my presentation, but the hope was, in the past, Woodinville hasn't had a local or federal legislative agenda, and this is kind of designed to be our overall legislative priorities on all levels. So the thought was that is there, and we won't be speaking to that point with our state offices because we know they don't have the funding available to do it, whereas other points on here, 1 and 3. And personally, in thinking about this, I found it to be an interesting concept so that they know we're going after other funding sources other than just telling the state they need to do more here. But I also think you raise an excellent point about for limited time, there could be something else more important than that.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to second the Deputy Mayor's point of the removal of the point that he suggested. I would also support that from this agenda. And second, because we're having one agenda document here, I do actually like having this listed here, because when you bring this to people, this catches their eye. It's something different. They're going to see all these different legislative agendas. This is something interesting to see is coming to our community. We don't need to spend a lot of time talking about it, but we can use this as a focal point to get people interested in why they should care about Woodinville right now and where Woodinville is going as a whole.
Councilmember Evans.
I also support removing that bullet. It's not something that we've really talked about, and so it'd be great to just get that out there. I also want to ask, when we are thinking about this document, and especially as it relates to transit, it's my understanding that really the county and Metro and the various transit organizations really own the service level agreements. I know we have some council members who are on the regional transit committees around here. It's not controlled by the state, is it, or the federal government?
I think a lot of the funding sources could come from external sources like the state and federal government, but Woodinville's primary transit is Sound Transit and King County Metro. So that is captured, it could be clearer under support for affordable housing in the second bullet for TOD. State recognition that bus service has not been restored to pre-pandemic levels, and development standards cannot be tied to variable and easily repealed levels of service.
Yeah, I think that that's really valid to have that piece, but asking for transit to come here, even if Metro got money, there's no guarantee that they would increase service here. So
Correct,
that's kind of the point that I'm trying to land.
Okay, great. I think that would be an excellent addition.
Well, I support how it's now about, transit-oriented design and that we don't have pre-pandemic levels of service, but I don't think that we should have one of our key three be to fund transit here. I think that that's really work that we need to do regionally.
Yeah, and I think that's what Mr. Hill's getting at. And I look at this when I look at the kind of the three big main asks, right? And they're not targeted specifically to the state level, right? As Mr. Hill's mentioned, kind of one will be, I envision is our big ask when we go to Olympia in the spring. Two will not probably come up in those conversations, other than if it's a passing, your support of this East Rail and the money for the trestle and the money that we're asking to make sure is in the budget for the trestle is already starting to return these great projects like this community center. Like that helps us with the conversation, but it's not, we're not going to go, we need money for this and this and this, right? It's going to be tailored to the audience that we have at the moment. The back page, I think, as Mr. Hill's mentioned, is this kind of helps us when we're having those informal conversations or a policy issue comes up or a bill proposal comes up in Olympia. We have some guidance from you guys on kind of what the bumpers are for that conversation. So I think any of us clearly understand that, we want the transit back. And I don't think any of us are unclear on that point.
Yeah, great, thanks.
So I want to weigh in on the grant process. I disagree with Councilmember Best-Campbell. We actually have had preliminary conversations about opportunities for grants on the community and aquatic rec center. The county representative is pretty excited about possibly pursuing a grant for a rec center. There's also opportunities to have a multi-use building that serves as a cooling, warming center. It could serve as some type of emergency preparedness facility. If we just saw the power outage here, and if we get one longer or even bigger, we need those types of shelters. There's pockets of money that are available, both state and federal, different ability to go after that. On the federal level, it's going to be challenging, but our federal lobbyist thinks that we have an opportunity to pursue money for a pool, and those are big issues for citizens of Woodinville. So I think we still continue on that, and also I will say, having navigated this for several years now, different representatives that you talk to are clearly passionate about different areas, and they're also very influential in different areas. So being able to have the flexibility to talk where that Venn diagram overlaps, where we have a need and a council desire, and then the ability of somebody to advocate for us on the federal, county, or state level makes a lot of sense. So we need to keep it reasonably broad so we have some flexibility to be able to pivot if necessary. So I think we still have opportunities here to fund some things, and preliminary conversations have been very, very good. In fact, Representative Dewar is very passionate about public safety, and I've had conversations with her on how we could navigate that and maybe make some improvements possibly that we may work with the state or may not. I don't know, but there's opportunities there because that is something that she's very passionate about. I know where our Representative Kloba is, and I also know where Senator Stanford is on many things, as well as Representative Cantwell and Murray and Del Bene. So I think there's lots of opportunities there. I'd like to see that opportunity stay in the mix. And again, whatever we do, I'd like to see some flexibility so that we have opportunities to pivot if, on the fly if necessary. But we do need to keep it concise because, if you're asking for lots of things, you're likely not to get anything. So we need to pick our battles when it's appropriate, when we can make headway. So let's stay a little bit flexible. And I also would highlight that the fully funding the education system here is, I believe it is a Woodinville issue. It's a state issue, obviously, but it is a Woodinville issue. Many people I talk to on a regular basis came here for the North Shore School District. The North Shore School District provides a great service to our city. It provides great education for our kids who become great citizens, who then go on to college possibly or in the workforce and stay here. So and also this is a very popular issue amongst our representatives. They've expressed appreciation that we have this on one of our priority lists. Councilmember Arndt.
Thank you. I know from being down in Olympia the last few years that it's very helpful to have a menu to choose from when you're talking to different representatives, that you can pick and mix and say, this person cares about this, here are the top 3. I love the fact that we have itemized issues on the back, and I would love to be able to have the flexibility to customize, the big bullet points to fit our audience, so that we know when we're going in that these are the priorities that most appeal and resonate with whoever we're speaking to at the minute. So I see this as very helpful as long as it's flexible. I also do want to go back to the transit issue. I think the language that we have in here about transit-oriented development is very helpful and absolutely something that we do need to advocate for. I will also say that I think it is helpful to put a bullet point on here that says that we want more transit service in general. Yes, that's controlled through Metro. That is a county service, and I think that advocating with our county elected officials for the fact that we are at below pre-pandemic levels of transit and that we have engaged with the Metro staff for years now advocating for our city, and yet we're not seeing movement and increase of service. I think that's an absolutely valid point to bring up to our local elected officials, and certainly something that the citizens of Woodinville have asked for repeatedly over the course of the years.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
I see. So as long as that point's repeated from a different mouth, that's when we're all going to nod our heads. Yes, this is also a document we can use with the county. The county is the one who controls Metro, but the state also controls funding. So what I hear is not, we need fun stuff. There are people who need the basic things about getting to and from work. I also want to say that we can talk about what the facility looks like in the pool, but remember that bullet point is for property acquisition only. That's for buying the dirt. That's not for building anything upon the dirt. That comes later. So let's not get ahead of ourselves with what this is going to be and what this really means. This is just a tiny little step. There's fun things that we can ask for, but I think there's also really basic needs that the citizens expect us to advocate for. And the county has been bereft in bringing service back. We're always first on the chopping block and the last to come back. So yes, there are things that different representatives like to hear, but sometimes our job is to tell them what our citizens want them to hear, which is bring back bus service. So if there is an unwillingness to go forward and actually push for the things that the people ask for, and we're gearing towards only what people want to hear, I don't think we're doing our job. So I think that there is a chance for us to maybe push the boundaries a little bit and say, okay, well, we've done everything that you've asked in terms of housing. We've done everything that you've asked in terms of finding affordability within that housing. When is it that we finally get something for Woodinville that we basically need, that every other community has, but we don't? And yes, I'm going to be told I don't know how to read the room, but my job is not to read the room and put the citizens last and make an uncomfortable conversation something that's off the table. So Let's have the uncomfortable conversation, and let's point out that we have a jury duty express and the opportunity to get to light rail in Northgate that basically is 5 stops from anywhere. So yeah, we should push the issue. They're not going to give us funding for a lot of different things, but even the most basic things we're asking for, we're not getting. So let's try a little harder here, and let's put the people first. And now let's hear about all the reasons why that's not going to happen, and that someone else has a better idea of how to do it. But I'm saying we need to do what the people have asked us for, and bus service is the thing that I hear people asking for.
So I do agree with one thing. We do need to read the room. When I talk to people, our representatives in the county and the state about bus service, I can tell when you talk about losing routes during the pandemic and everybody here is paying RTA taxes and yet we're getting less service, that resonates. But bullying our way into magically forcing the state or county to produce that is not a productive or an efficient way of going about it. We can raise it, which we have, and we've made some inroads. The first inroad is that they've admitted that our park and ride, which is state-owned, it's a state-owned park and ride, it's operated by the King County, is woefully underutilized. That was admitted, and so that's the first step. Now, how do we get to better utilization? That's the next trick, and just demanding it isn't going to cut it. So as far as the community rec center and the pool, this might be, I could be wrong, but it's right at the top. It could be the #1 priority that residents of Woodinville ask for, is a community rec center, just for public consumption. Our rec center went away, and our Parks and Recs department went away in 2011. I'm assuming it was budgetary. That was the end of the Great Recession. But so that's coming on 14 years where we haven't had a Parks and Recs department, and we have a generational opportunity right now, and we can pursue money for land acquisition to help us in that process. And that's the first step. We need to walk before we run. So the first step in that process is to get money to purchase the land, and then we work with our partners in North Shore School District and NPRSA to figure out how we're going to build and operate that. So I disagree. There are opportunities to help us with land acquisition on this, and there's been some optimism expressed amongst our partners, both on the federal and the county level, of helping us with that process. So we need to keep heading in that direction. Anybody else hasn't spoken and want to speak? Seeing none, do I have any motions?
Yes, I would like to approve the 2025 legislative agenda as amended. That there were several things that we had as part of the conversation. One was removal of the point that's somewhat unclear of what the outcome or effects would be on encampment removal. Another is the supportive funding for transit. I, as a member of Eastside Transportation and several other transit, I hope I can get support from this council as part of this vote to make sure that we're doing letters of support for those agencies as they're seeking to get additional funding at the state level. And there'll be an additional bullet, if you could, to support more creative forms of funding for transportation beyond the fuel tax, which is something that's also coming up over and over again because the limitation is based upon fuel usage.
Deputy Morano, can we, you mentioned a motion, can we make that a little bit more concise, and then we can.
I move to approve the 2025 legislative agenda as amended.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. You get the first chance to discuss that if you'd like.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that those amendments were clear, because if you say it as amended in second, we go into another barrage of discussion. But the amendments are the ones that I made in statement.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? See none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Number 17, approval of resolution number 653, modifying the 2024-2025 council member committee assignments. Mr. Hill.
All right, hello again. Let's see, for this item, we are seeking for council to consider the adoption of resolution 643 to name an appointee and an alternate to the Metropolitan Solid Waste Advisory Committee, or MSWAC. So the Solid Waste Division provides waste transfer and disposal and recycling services for all King County except for Seattle and Milton. They operate 8 transfer stations, 2 drop boxes, and the only remaining landfill in the county, Cedar Hills Regional Landfill. They also manage the RePlus program, siting of the NERTS facility, and are also looking at long-term disposal plans that could have potential future impacts on the east side and in the Woodinville area. So here you can kind of see a little bit about MSWAC, but in 2025, MSWAC will generally meet the second Wednesday of each month, and they do have a remote, it's actually a fully remote meeting from 10 a.m. to noon. The 2024 meetings have concluded for the year. And it's a mix of elected officials and city staff. Typically you'll see, at least one elected official and or 2, or it could be 1 elected, 1 staff. There's kind of a mix of how different cities do it. So in 2025, MSWAC will generally meet, MSWAC is currently assisting the development of a long-term disposal plan that's required by Washington state statute, and that's kind of what triggered wanting to make sure we had a council member put back on this committee. The MSWAC is receiving reports right now on the different impacts associated with various disposal methods. And they're looking at things like mass burn, freight hauling out of the area, and other options as well. And finally, as you know, MSWAC is a key stakeholder in the NERTS process as well. So it's always good to keep an eye there. Here on the screen, you'll see the current committee assignments. And traditionally in January of even-numbered years, the city council makes appointments to a number of standing assignments around the region, covering a variety of policy areas, and identifies liaisons to city commissions. But given that next year is an odd number year, wanted to make sure we got this done now, so vacancy wasn't held blank there. So here you can see the current assignments and the vacancy we are looking to fill as both the primary member and an alternate. Given that staff is available to participate and monitor this committee, and already am, council can consider appointing a staff member as the alternate in the case that the selected council member is not able to attend, given that staff is already attending the meeting. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but with that, I do have the 2 motions necessary to appoint someone, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for the presentation. I think this is an important committee assignment, particularly in light of what's going on with the transfer station. I know I've tried to work really hard to build good relationships with the county and the state, and I would accept I would accept a nomination to serve as our representative with a staff member as the alternate.
Quick point of order. On here, it's saying resolution number 643, and then it's saying resolution 653. Are there 2 resolutions, or is one a typo?
Oh, shoot, I apologize. One of those is a typo.
Okay. Is it 43 or 53?
1 second.
Sorry.
53, Brandon. Oh, 653. Sorry about that.
I think you would just need to basically adopt that second motion, which would move to adopt resolution 653 as amended, and the amendment being filling in who the appointee is.
I move to amend Exhibit 1 of Resolution
653.
Yeah, I was like 645, naming council member Millman to serve on the Metropolitan Solid Waste Advisory Committee, MISWAC, and staff member Hill to serve as the alternate.
Second.
I have a motion second. Deputy Mayor Randolph.
These are the two people that I think would have the most impact. I know that Mr. Hill has been attending these meetings and has been a regular there for, at this point, possibly since he got here. So I appreciate the service that he's given, and Mayor Millman has done a great job showing his defense of making sure that things go properly in terms of the siting advisory. And I think as we move forward with MISWAC, this will be a great way to keep up with what's going on in that arena and making sure that we determine a good path forward and keep an eye on what's going on with that process.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Evans?
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards?
Yes.
Councilmember Best-Campbell?
Nope.
Mayor Millman?
Yes.
Councilmember Arndt?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
No.
Deputy Mayor Randolph?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-2. Thank you very much. That concludes our business items. On to public comments. Okay, public comment period. Again, when you announce your name, come to the microphone, announce your name. You have 3 minutes and state whether you live in the city limits. First is Jeff Lyon.
I'm Jeff Lyon. I live in city limits. This is a statement that I prepared for the public hearing, but I was not allowed to speak. So I'll go ahead and make that comment at this time. With regard to the ethics charges against Mayor Millman, the hearing examiner erred in their determination that he did not commit violations of Revised Code of Washington or Woodinville Municipal Code. First, only witnesses called in the examiner's investigation were the mayor's spouse, who is inherently biased, and an executive at Santo Saint Michel, who is not only biased, but could be considered an accessory in a criminal trial. Summarizing hours of testimony, their argument was basically, the mayor is a great guy, according to his friends and family. He was already against the transfer center. He didn't consume complimentary food or beverage at the VIP reception. The VIP reception is a cheaper version of the VRC reception to get around PDC reporting requirements. There are other officials who also attended these events, so it should be okay for the mayor. This is immaterial. Mayor Millman's own testimony and statements to the PDC are evidence that he violated state and municipal law. RCW 4223070, Section 2. No municipal officer may directly or indirectly give or receive or agree to receive any compensation, gift, reward, or gratuity. Fact, on February 16, 2024, Mayor Millman submitted an amendment to his 2022 F1 statement disclosing a gift of $150. This isn't about the transfer center. The mayor was later approached by Sycamore Partners, the owner of Santo Saint Michel, asking for an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan in support of a lucrative development proposal. WMC 236020, Section 2.
Which I voted against. I did not support that.
Point of order, please don't interrupt the
No,
speaker.
I have by
Please
rules.
don't interrupt the speaker.
Council member, by rules, I have the right to set the record straight. I did not support that motion.
Not during public comment.
That's not correct.
Sir, may I continue?
Yes.
Thank you. WMC 236020, Section 2, accepts or seeks for others any service, information, or thing of value on more favorable terms than those granted to the public. Fact, Mayor Millman purchased tickets to a concert that were not available to the general public because they were sold out. As an ordinary resident, I could not call Chateau Saint Michel and ask for a held-back block of tickets. Given these facts, I urge you to put the law over your politics and vote to convict Mayor Millman. Thank you.
Allison Farmer.
Hi, Allison Farmer.
resident outside the city limits. This was a 5-minute comment too, but I wasn't allowed to say it, so excuse me if it's a bit edited. I'm not sure that the mayor steeping so low to show those videos in his defense shows any ethical or decorum, and it's disgusting for us, and actions of the mayor to do. I started fighting for social justice and democracy in this council when I witnessed the mayor engage in deceptive and intimidating speech to a very worried room full of minority community. He disregarded the Planning Commission's recommendation, heritage vote, and went against the wishes of the impacted community to push an Old Town Code amendment through to an unnecessary public hearing. He then chose to disregard the valid concerns of larger community represented at the public hearing. Information about the meeting was suppressed and the story narrative manipulated in the media. I think he's doing that again. This behaviour has caused a significant loss of trust within the community, and it's deeply concerning that the mayor appeared to approach the situation as a game to be won, orchestrating a predetermined argument and vote with other council members. These were individuals' livelihoods at stake, and I would expect a mayor to handle this matter with greater respect and empathy. Then, when the Planning Commission sent back the Main Street Town DA for revision due to significant errors, Main Street withdrew, and the mayor promptly and unfairly initiated a motion to diminish the level of involvement the Planning Commission has over future development agreements. This action is highly disrespectful of dedicated resident volunteers who actively participate in affairs and come prepared to meetings. I firmly believe that such a move would jeopardize the integrity of future development agreements and restrict public comment. This pattern behavior reflects a concerning trend of injustice and perversive democracy in action. The Plan Commission acted lawfully, and no one ever has requested a limitation on what they can discuss in the past. There's also recent emails that clearly demonstrate Tyler Freeman, who fought to make Mulbat's landmark, was misled by the mayor, city manager, or both. This prevented the completed nomination being filed before Green Partners obtained a demolition permit for the buildings. Under the mayor's watch, the Landmark Commission was undermined and disrespected, and deception used to grant Green Partners undue favours. There seems to be a concerning lack of transparency and deals being made behind closed doors. Developers' interests are always priority of the city's and residents' needs, and public comments only seem welcome if they align with the mayor's agenda. The mayor clearly accepted a gift and a favour from Sato San Michel, and you have just proved tonight that a worrying pattern of unethical behaviour is systemic in this council, and democracy and integrity is dead.
Rich McKee.
Hi, Rich McKee, local business, and also I do live on Hollywood Hill, so I'm just outside of city limits. I'm here today on behalf of the Woodinville Car Club, as well as on behalf of community members of Woodinville and surrounding communities. In the past, we've had conversations about the Christmas Light Parade and Festival that we started 8 years ago. Since then, obviously, we've run into some issues about funding for traffic control, as well as closing the roads. Yes, last year we had a fairly successful event that has now turned this into what is recognized as the second largest event in the city of Woodinville, beyond Woodinville, Celebrate Woodinville. So considering how much this event has grown, obviously the community is asking for it. And as much as you all have to put up with a lot of negativity in the community about so many things that have to happen, such as growth and a number of other things, our community is also looking for things that they can enjoy, things that they can smile about. Clearly, our community has shown that this is one of those major things that they want, and they want to see continue. Unfortunately, we cannot continue the parade and or festival if we cannot get the funding or get the support from the city that we need. So my ask is that we are able to somehow, at some point, continue these conversations so that in 2025 and years moving forward, we can find a way to work together with the community, with the club, and the city to make this work. Thanks for your time.
Mr. McKee, the car parade is going on this year. Can you tell us when and where?
So
what time?
We are moving forward with it this year. We've got a lot of, I just found out just a number of months ago that it would have cost us $25,000 between Public Works Department and the officers, and so there's no way it's a free event for the community, so there's no money raised. So we are still moving forward with it, though, and it's on Sunday, December 15th, 6 o'clock p.m., so it'll be the parade and festival, but it will have its limitations to how we can go about the event, so we can still keep it safe for the community.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Gary Harris.
My name is Gary Harris. I live within the Woodinville city limits. And first of all, I am extremely disgusted at the behavior of the council majority during the ethics hearing. As you have seen, there are several people here that, myself included, that wish to speak and were not granted the right to speak. So I had about 5 minutes of stuff prepared, but I will cut it down so that I don't go over. So RCW, this was mentioned, RCW 42.23.070 subsection 2. No municipal officer may directly or indirectly give or receive or agree to receive any compensation, gift, reward, or gratuity, underlined, from a source except the employing municipality. So the argument that Mr. Millman's attorney made is null and void. You are guilty because you accepted that. It doesn't matter whether San Michelle started it, requested it, or you requested it. You received it. Guilty. End of discussion. And having Council Member Best-Campbell not be on the dais during that time, Councilmember Evans should also not have been there because she was unable to have a fairness, meet the fairness requirement because she was also guilty of accepting $300 in gifts. So she shouldn't have been there either. And it was mentioned $10,000 for the cost of this hearing. Okay, so I want to know, compare that to what is the cost of the 67% raise that the council majority voted yourselves per year, and the increase. I am speaking, you are listening.
That is not correct. We did
I have 3 minutes.
We did not vote
This
ourselves.
is public comments. I have 3 minutes.
I am allowed to correct the record. We did not vote ourselves a pay raise.
You tricked, or you pulled a fast one.
That is not
by
true.
Appointing a committee that you knew would give you a raise.
Not true.
End of discussion. Please be quiet. I am talking. You are listening. Got it? Okay, so let's compare the costs of those things. And the lawsuit that you referred to by a planning commission, former planning commission member, he was the aggressor. He threatened the person who was mayor before me. He threatened me on 2 occasions. I thought that he was going to leap over the dais and attack me. And I quit listening to what he was saying because I was concerned that he was going to leap over the dais, at which point I was going to take his head and smash it against the top of the dais.
But that doesn't surprise me. Your time is up, Mr. Harris.
And you interrupted me. I have a few more seconds.
I interrupted you for 30 seconds.
Capital projects.
Your time is up.
Car chargers, which benefit you only.
Mr. Harris,
sidewalks
your time
in
is up.
neighborhoods that benefit only one council member.
Your time is up, Mr. Harris. You're not
good night.
Showing a lack of decorum. Please sit down. Alex Campbell.
Well, Alex Campbell, I live in the city limits. I don't have to talk about the public hearing because I got to speak. I was the only person who wasn't a co-conspirator who got to speak. And in fact, Mike Millman got 3 times as much representation during that public hearing. I do want to correct one thing. Mayor Harris former mayor, but he was a mayor, so he knows the job, and he knows not to interrupt public commenters. He misspoke. It's not Councilmember Evans. She did not at least file a PDC about accepting gifts. She might still have. It was Councilmember Arndt. She filed saying she accepted a gift from a recycling company to go to a chamber event. Interesting. Okay, my topic tonight is about the problems we've seen with democracy. Democracy does need an open and honest representation. Washington citizens, knowing this in the early 1970s, in the shadow of Watergate, passed a series of citizen initiatives. They created the Open Public Meetings Act, they created the Public Records Act, they created the PDC, the Public Disclosure Commission. All of these things were intended to give people a view into the opaque nature of any large organization. Governments are large, governments may not want to always share, so these are ways to say, you people own the government, this is our democracy, therefore they're allowed to know what goes on. Journalists and the public have frequently used these and frequently had to defend them against government trying to shut them down. What we are seeing is a worrying pattern here. Woodinville has continually slowed its response rate, especially for specific people and specific targets. Woodinville has made extra efforts to send back their questions to clarify something on a Friday afternoon, knowing full well that the response will not get resolved until the next week. I don't blame the city staff, well, maybe the city attorney. I blame the city council and their enablement of the city manager to push this forward. I also blame you tonight. How dare you talk about and try to shame the public for speaking up and asking for information? We own the government. It's part of us. We're allowed to ask questions. Nothing that was done was illegal. Just switching gears slightly, the complaint I filed included the entire public records request for the hearing examiner.
No, it did
so
not.
Multiple lies were told tonight, including that Mr. Millman
Please stop interrupting the public. Yes, shut up. Censure me because you're going to do it again. Stop interrupting the public so that they can speak their minds. We work for them.
Wow.
Yes, wow yourself.
I would like to point to Councilmember.
I would like to point to you continuing to interrupt my public comment. This is not your time to speak.
Your wife
this
was speaking.
Is not.
Your wife
don't
was speaking
start
as well.
arguing. Everybody will tell you that's a bad style. Everyone will tell you that that is a really bad. It is a really bad idea to do this. You're giving yourself a terrible look here. So just sit down and say thank you at the end.
I'm sitting down.
Every mayor before you knew to do that.
We have a council rule. I'm going to reiterate again that I am allowed by council rule to correct the record.
I'm allowed by the First Amendment to say whatever I want.
I did not
that's
stop
true.
You. Did not
and
stop
even
you.
that's things that are not true, I can say because they're my opinion. But I'm going to tell you it's true. You tonight lied. You said that you never bought wine. In the hearing with the hearing examiner, under oath, you said you bought wine. Which was the lie? I have the transcript. I have the recording. There's many other ones like that where you say one thing one place, another. You like to say whatever's easy for you.
Okay, you've had sufficient time. I disagree with you. So did this hearing examiner. Thank you for your commentary.
And that's the way to handle it.
Report to City Manager.
Nothing further this evening. Thank you.
Reports to council members. Councilmember Evans.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Councilmember Edwards.
No report, thank you.
Councilmember Deputy Mayor Randolph.
My understanding this is probably going to be our last meeting of the year. I really wish it had gone out with more of the Christmas spirit, but in light of that, let's go ahead and make sure that we have a great end of year, and I look forward to seeing everyone next year.
Councilmember Best-Campbell.
So this is the time of year when we're getting really close to the darkest. We're getting close to the solstice, which sounds depressing, but it actually isn't. It means that once we get to that darkest day, it means every day beyond that starts to get a little bit lighter. So with that, I want to wish everyone happy holidays. I want to wish special luck to those who are applying for college. This is about the time when everyone has had it, the kids have had it, parents have had it. I would just like to remind everyone that there are indeed brighter days ahead, and once we get past the 21st of December, things will be looking up. So let's all come back to the brighter days and look forward to that ahead of us. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, and everybody be safe, and let's hope we don't have any more storms.
Councilmember Arndt.
Thank you. This past week, I was able to attend the Chamber's Hometown Heroes Luncheon. It was a fantastic opportunity to just celebrate some individuals and some organizations who are doing fantastic work to support our community members. And I just want to do a special plug for the Shop with a Cop program, which is run by the Woodinville PD and their partners in the community. And I believe there are still boxes out there waiting to be claimed and filled to support the community members in need. Thanks.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yeah, tonight we signed a declaration that we received some training for ethics. However, I think I'd like to see more training in the beginning of the year, if we can schedule some more, because there are questions that came up about, can we receive coffee? What's the limit of the gift that we can accept before it becomes grift or viewed as something that we can't do? So I'd like to have that meeting scheduled early in the year so we can start off on a good foot.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to just wish staff and everybody here and all the residents of Woodinville happy holidays. We'll see you, I think, the first Tuesday in January. Is that the plan? Okay. Can I get a motion?
Move to adjourn.